welcome to our very first episode of the OTWO Pod. Thank you so much for joining us. The OTWO Pod is pretty much about bringing sustainability down to earth and to give good points to anybody that's interested in changing any sort of practices, business practices, anything. To be able to inspire and to be able to create change, we need to have really deep conversations. So, the first season is going to be building greener businesses. Building greener businesses, we are inviting different companies from local businesses, obviously local industries. Many different industries will be joining us in the OTWO Pod. And we will be asking them those questions. What has helped, what are you doing to help the world, our environment, what sustainable practices, what have you found easy, what have you found difficult? This is all that we're going to be doing and what we're going to be talking about on the OTWO Pod and especially on this season 1. So what better way to start than with Carlos Buhagiar, fellow environmentalist. I think he believes, I think you do, don't you?
Absolutely. Firstly, I feel honored to be your first called here up to your podcast, honestly, especially in this industry and in this environmental aspect, which I feel very passionate about.
I think it's much needed. I think we need to bring it down to what it is. You know, how long have you been into your company? How long has you?
I finished university about 10 years ago, and I started working at Wastage Products, which my dad's one of the main shareholders. And as I came in, obviously I saw the future was heading towards sustainability, and I had always been a firm believer, being as well chartered accountant, I'm a qualified ACCA accountant. I do believe that sustainability nowadays equals profitability.
Yeah.
And every day that is becoming more true, and I do believe that the future lies in sustainability.
It is for that, but we started thinking about it and you think, becoming sustainable sometimes can be more costly, sometimes can cost, and you don't think about it, but technologies and everything else is evolving into that way now. It's
Absolutely.
Becoming more profitable for a company to change and to evolve to become more sustainable.
Absolutely. Not only that, legislation is also heading towards that way. I do believe that, for example, in Gibraltar, some more could be done in terms of legislation, but especially in the European Union, that is the way that we're heading. For example, exporting waste from Gibraltar into the EU nowadays is becoming ever more challenging. The EU only want to accept waste that is recoverable up to a certain point, which I do believe that will bring about good changes in the future, will bring about innovation in business, and all this innovation will only bring about more profitability.
Yeah. So has Wastage Products always been focused on this? Or do you feel that recently with these changes and obviously the environmental impacts that we're seeing, unfortunately, has brought about you making these?
Absolutely. We've had to welcome these changes and obviously innovate to be able to be ahead of the game, obviously. Whereas about 10 years ago, it was very easy to export our waste. Everything just got filled into a landfill, got covered up. That is something that the EU, and especially around these areas in Spain, they're moving away from. So again, we have had to look for more innovative solutions to recover our waste. That is going to be a challenge as well for the future wastewater treatment plant. As we know, Gibraltar uses salt water in the toilet. That does raise the salinity levels on the waste that we have to export, making it more challenging to make compost, be able to digest that waste, to create biomass, etc. Add to that the added issue that we obviously have in Gibraltar that I've been talking about for years, about the wipes. We do export a lot of waste with a lot of wipes that do contain plastic. It sort of contaminates the rest of your waste, making it even more challenging to
When did you start seeing issues with regards to wipes in our drainage system?
we've always had it, really. But I think the first major challenge we had was during the first relining operations that we did at Linewell Road. We had to overpump the sewage from there, and we had to remove the pumps every couple of hours to unblock it because the wipes were just clogging up the pumps and they couldn't handle it. That was sort of like the first major challenge that we saw, and that's what sort of like pushed us at the beginning to move into raising awareness onto it.
So tell us a bit about those campaigns, the no wipes in pipes, isn't it?
Yeah, no wipes in pipes. if it doesn't come out of you, it shouldn't go in the loo.
Love it, I love it.
Well, yeah, we've obviously been trying to raise awareness on that. We have given a couple of talks at schools to children. We have sponsored the Eco Festival with OTWO, obviously, as we've been working together for a while. And obviously trying to, again, promote this idea of disposing of your waste properly. All right, so we are not against people cleaning themselves with wipes. We absolutely understand it. However, when it comes to disposing of it, it shouldn't go inside the toilet. Inside the toilet, even if at home you believe out of sight, out of mind, it's not really like that. It goes into the sewage system. It does create infrastructure issues. Eventually, it might lead out to the sea if it's not stopped at one of the pumping stations. But eventually, all of that waste will have to be removed from there and exported. All of that is just a much more inefficient way of throwing that wipe, whereas you could just throw it in the bin.
So to talk about a bit of administration-wise, a bit of how have you found sustainable practices in the office? Because I mean, your company is very focused on, you know, the wipes and it's very focused on drainage and all these things. But the norm is that most companies have office, has admin and everything else. Have you done any sort of transition to a more sustainable practices, and how have you found that?
Yeah. Well, a few years ago, we started to become more paper-less. I wouldn't like to say paper-free because we still do have papers in the office, unfortunately.
It happens.
It happens. We do sometimes work with clients where we need to have papers signed so that operations are recorded. However, we are looking to automate that a bit more and to be able to perhaps have these certificates on a tablet where we could sign. However, that's something we are looking into. And we have recently made a partnership with Wastage Limited, a local company who is assisting us in recording our carbon footprint.
Wow.
Again, as an accountant, I do believe that if something doesn't get measured, it doesn't get done. So again, we have been recording our carbon footprint ever since 2022 as our baseline year.
Right.
So now we are well underway in completing our 2024 carbon footprint and seeing how we are obviously able to reduce that. Asila does also provide us with assistance on consultations on how to reduce carbon footprint, helping us with company policies and stuff like that. So
it's all about the first number, isn't it? Sometimes it can become very daunting for a company to think, whoa, what am I going to do? How do I start? And it's all about, we always say, you know, it's the first number is the one that's more daunting, and you think that you don't even want to see it. I always say, well, you're trying to lose weight or something, and you don't want to put yourself on the scales because you don't want to see it, but then you carry on, and it's all like spirals.
Absolutely, sort of thing. Absolutely. But as well as losing weight, you've got to start at some point.
You always got to start at some point, and that number shouldn't be something to be scared of. So well done. Absolutely. It's an amazing achievement.
It is obviously a work in progress. It has been a learning curve for the whole office because, again, it's something we're implementing now. It is something that we obviously need to spread that idea and that vision across the whole organization, from the operative to directors, and everyone obviously having that idea that we need to get this sustainable company well into the future.
Has any numbers particularly shocked you that you wouldn't have expected that it would have been so impactful?
Energy usage, I guess. Gibraltar is a bit reduced in terms of renewable energies and stuff like that. We are looking into installing some solar panels in our premises now.
That's really cool.
However, again, I do believe that the incentives locally aren't 100% there. It is something that obviously we want to do, something that we believe in.
But those incentives would have helped.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Incentives, and I do believe as well facilitating. I think that would help very much. I don't really know how to go about that in terms of policy and regulation, but
having a helping hand would obviously help other companies make possible changes.
Absolutely, and again, I'm a big caller for collaboration.
Yeah.
Right? I do believe that, especially in these aspects like sustainability and stuff, if it weren't for collaboration, you can't do it alone.
No.
Right? And
it is all
again,
about
our
that.
partnership with Asila now on this carbon footprint reporting is literally that, them just assisting us into making this happen.
Guiding.
Yeah, absolutely. So making that first number, as you say, less daunting.
You wouldn't be the first one to start, and hopefully not the last to be able to start doing this.
We hope so. I mean, at the end of the day, this is something that will be implemented in the future. I think it was back in June 23, the IFRS included some legislation in the EU to increase the number of companies that had to report on the carbon footprint from 11,000 companies to 55,000 companies across the EU. And I do believe that that number is just going to grow. EU legislation and regulations are just going to mean that more people are going to have to report on their carbon footprint, which brings about issues on greenwashing and stuff like that. But again, that's something
that the legislations and regulations need to make sure that it's done properly.
It's standardized properly.
So what advice would you give a company, any sort of company of administration, or maybe a company that's got to do it in your particular industry? What advice would you give them if they were to start thinking more in terms of sustainability? I need to change. I don't know what to do to start. What advice would you say from your experience?
Firstly, one step at a time. Don't try diving into the deep end and trying to bite off more than you can chew. You know, I mean, sustainability is a journey, I believe. There's loads of things that you can start doing, from implementing a recycling solutions in your offices to lowering the air conditioning. Simple.
Closing the window.
Etc. So very, very simple points that could be done just to start lowering that. Then obviously collaboration, look for help. There are companies in Gibraltar, I haven't mentioned about our fuel consumption as well, but there are companies in Gibraltar now that are trying to offset their fuel consumptions. We are using Giboil at the moment, who are also offsetting part of their fuel that they sell, which has been a winning part on their behalf, I think. So again, try to look for these collaborations with other companies, get in touch with other people in the industry and see how anyone can help, because I'm sure that people in this industry are willing to help and give that extra hand.
I think it just proves the fact that it is the way forward, and I think it is the way that business is going. I mean, you've just mentioned a few companies there that are doing things more sustainably, which makes them more attractive in that sort of way. So it is, what we're saying is sustainability equals profitability.
Absolutely.
And this is the way that the world is going. So anyways, I want to thank you very much for coming. Is there anything else you want to share?
No, I think
that's it.
It's been a great time.
Thank you so much for being my first guy here.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for joining us in this first ever episode of O2 Pod. I hope it's been fruitful. I hope that you've taken on some of the good points that Carlito has shared with us, and join us for our next episode soon.